that I've always worked with kids, even when I was a kid myself. I'm the oldest of four kids and just enjoyed being around them. But I began working in public education because I wanted to do meaningful work. It was, work that was aligned with my values. As I said, I've always loved kids and I've loved learning. I've had a strong commitment to public and community service as well, even as a child. And then when I was in college, I studied history and sociology, and it just seemed like, that natural curiosity that I had about people and the world and education felt like the perfect fit. My first job was in a large rural high school in central Indiana, and it had a significant migrant student population. And I was drawn to students who struggled, those who often found themselves in trouble, students that found themselves in the margins. Even when I worked at UW-Madison, I connected with the kids that struggled, and that was one of my roles as an academic advisor. But in this case, I mean, I connected with these students who were struggling to learn English and fit in to the community, and that connection fueled my passion for teaching. I taught also English as a second language based sections of US history and world history. I coached softball and I sponsored National Honor Society and Student Council, and I love the relationships that I built with all my students. And I also just reflected on how it felt when I was in high school and how much it meant to me to belong when I was in school, because I didn't always feel like I belonged. Um, and so when my teachers, created that environment for me, I made sure that I did everything that I could to make sure that all kids had that experience of belonging when I worked with them. And, then after that, I moved to a more affluent school. It was my husband's job, took us out of the community in central Indiana. And then I headed to graduate school at UW-Madison. And then, as my roles have changed over the years, going from teacher to administrator, including my current role as a state superintendent, I do remain a teacher at heart, and every experience that I've had in the classroom still informs how I lead and serve today. So education has the power to transform lives, and it's a place where relationships, purpose, and learning intersect, and I can't imagine doing anything else. I reflect on it and always comes back. Yeah, here I'm in my second term now. It always comes back to me that I just care deeply about kids. And I mean, I don't mean that in a necessarily rhetorical way, like not the idea of our kids or our ideal vision of kids, but kids as they are, as they present themselves across their state. So one of the things that moved me to run was the fact that so often doing what's best for our kids can be used as a political football. And I saw that as a school superintendent in rural Southwest Wisconsin. I saw that as I served on different committees. I served on committees for the WASD, which is the Association of School District Administrators, and I served on committees for WASB, which is the business officials. Um, I was really involved in these different things, and I just saw how politics, was negatively impacting, the experience for public education for our kids. And so I think it's detrimental not just to kids, but to our body politic too, that instead of talking about real solutions and real issues, a lot of folks just want to gesture at ideas or concepts that have nothing to do with the real experiences and the needs of kids or teachers in our communities. So I wanted to bring my perspective, which, is grounded in that deep knowledge and experience of children in educational settings and how our systems do, and frankly, sometimes don't best serve them. And I know that the nature of elected office means that to some extent, there's always going to be someone somewhere who's going to want to paint things as a partisan issue. But I think I've proven that I'm willing to listen and to work with anyone who truly wants to make things better for kids. And kids themselves are the center of the story. And that's my job, which is to stay laser focused on them. When I look at the first term, I think there's a lot to be proud of. I'm proud of the bipartisan work that we did to bring Act 20 to fruition. I'm proud of the work that we've done to implement the special educator workforce recruitment and retention program. I'm also, just when I look at that, I mean, there's things that we can do to build off of that, to address what the numbers and what districts are telling us are their greatest needs in terms of staffing. I'm proud also of the fact that in Wisconsin, we're seeing a rise in graduation rates, especially coming out of COVID. With the class of 2024 having the highest graduation rates since the way of calculating was done that way 15 years ago when that was introduced. I'm proud of both budget proposals that we put forward. I'm going to continue to challenge myself and my DPI colleagues to be visionaries on behalf of public educators and public school students, to both address the challenges that we face, but also to look at the challenges to create more opportunities for what can be. And it's kind of like driving a car on a highway, right? You need to be aware of what's going on around you, that you have to be defensive or, whatever the IPSI or whatever it's called. But you have to be aware of what's around you, the road conditions, the behaviors of other drivers, but also further up ahead, because that may be too far ahead to see even what might be very quickly becoming maybe an abrupt standstill. So I'm very proud of our budget proposals because we've handled a lot of uncertainty. And when you look at the shifting federal funding environment, we have to address this with patience. But we also have it centered on our legal authority and our statutory duties. And so we have the duties to the kids of Wisconsin to keep our boat upright and even keeled. So no matter the weather, and I've been told by lots of folks that our responses help them feel grounded and able to continue to do the work that they're doing. So over the next 4 years, though, I mean, you're going to see a DPI that's going to take a much more active and visible role in supporting educators across Wisconsin. Last year, under my leadership, we kicked off a strategic planning process that helped us bring focus and clarity to work, making sure that everything we do is directly aligned with what our schools, our libraries, and communities actually need. We spent a lot of time traveling across the state, listening to educators, families, and community members, and we gathered a ton of valuable input. And so that feedback is directly shaping our path forward. So as we continue to roll out this plan, though, you'll see a strong, consistent effort to bring our vision to life, which is to have engaged learners creating a better Wisconsin together. Top of mind for me right now as we wind down the school year is that we get our biennial budget passed that truly meets the needs of our students, our educators, and districts. So a major piece of that is raising the special education reimbursement rate to at least 60%. I mean, we see it all across the state. Your members are dealing with this daily. I mean, too many districts are being forced to dip into their general funds just to meet basic, legally mandated services. And it's unsustainable. I mean, we need to stop putting districts in the position of going to referendum just to keep their lights on. And at the same time, we've got student mental health, which remains one of the most pressing challenges we face. Too many kids are struggling. And while we have excellent training, we have dedicated staff and effective resources and knowledge we need to support to scale those efforts so that kids can thrive. As I was saying in the very beginning, every student deserves to feel safe and supported and that they belong at school and to know that they're in crisis. Someone is there to help. And this is kind of a baseline that I'd like to establish. I mean, we've made some progress, but now's the time to act with urgency. If we want a strong future for Wisconsin, we have to invest in our public schools. Our schools need the resources that are flexible, spendable, and predictable, ones that allow local districts to address their unique needs. I live on a small little hobby farm in Southwest Wisconsin. I love my garden, although the weather this year has not been really great for that. I have a flock of chickens who keep us entertained and also fed with their eggs. I spend a lot of time with my husband John and my kids, David and Rachel. We like to explore Wisconsin, and like personally though, I like to do embroidery. I love cross stitch. I love to read. I like to do both those things outside when the weather is nice. And as I said before, I enjoy traveling. I love just going and visiting small towns in Wisconsin. I'm fascinated by their history. Every time I go out, I learn something new. I'm also just fascinated by how our communities have evolved and how they continue to evolve too. I suppose what I'd say is that I think I would like for educators to have the sense that, DPI is made up of people just like them, many of whom are educators or were educators themselves at some point. A lot of our employees actually go back to the field too. So, I mean, there's a lot of technical things that DPI is tasked with doing, information we have to collect, just for compliance reasons, right? With the rules and regulation. I know that can feel annoying to deal with. I was on the receiving end of that for many years, but the people who are doing the work are doing it here and not elsewhere because they care about education. They care about kids and they care about educators. And as much as possible at the DPI, we want to see and treat people as individuals with dignity and respect. And I hope that comes through. And when we fall short, I feel like it's important to know that we encourage an environment where we learn, we modify, and we work with people and systems to move forward in a productive way. I mentioned a little while ago, but as we implement our strategic plan, we're actively working to make sure that everything we do is aligned with what our schools and our libraries and our communities actually need. And as part of that, we have outlined some critical priority areas that you'll see us actively working to accomplish. And those are creating innovative educational opportunities, improving educator recruitment and retention, focusing on learner and educator mental health, and modernizing and improving the DPI. And these are key focus areas that we're using to bring our vision to life. And we put them in our budget request. And interestingly enough, I mean, it was in our previous one too, but all aiming towards that vision to have, again, engaged learners creating a better Wisconsin together. Every time I go out, that's what school districts want to know is like, how can we work in concert? I would say that, school districts they're doing an incredible job balancing so many competing interests. It's, they're sandwiched between state and national directives on one side, and then they're trying to be responsive to their local needs, and which are going to vary. And I think the key thing that I'd like for folks to focus on is just go back to that question, what's best for kids? Just focus on doing what's best for kids. And when things get contentious and when, folks get loud, I mean, that's a time to get quiet and to listen and to be careful and thoughtful and just ask that question. I would also encourage school districts to continue to reach out to us at the DPI and offer feedback on how we can, as the state education agency, better align to their district needs, as well as the needs of their students and the needs of their educators and the needs of their communities. And that partnership is really critical to helping shape the future of our agency and education in Wisconsin. I think before I would offer any advice, I would first just start by saying thank you. Thank you for going into public service. Thank you for standing up for kids, all of our kids, in such a public way. Make sure to see everyone around you as a colleague or a potential colleague. Look for mentors and share your knowledge freely. Be a person who lifts other people up. I mean, that energy is contagious and it makes us all better educators, public servants, and people. And finally, it's always good to ask questions. Just because you're supposed to be the person who has the answers, asking questions is even more important.